Did you know that the wealth stolen from Africa since 1885 is estimated to be over 100 trillion? For centuries, a deliberate lie has been perpetuated that Africa was a dark continent devoid of civilization until European intervention. This narrative, designed to justify colonization and enslavement, is a gross distortion of the truth. Today, we are dismantling this historical lie, exposing the vibrant civilizations, the devastating impact of the Berlin Conference, and the ongoing consequences of this manufactured narrative. Before the arrival of Europeans, Africa was a continent teeming with diverse and prosperous kingdoms. Great Zimbabwe, a magnificent city with a population of 18,000 from the 11th to the 15th centuries, thrived on gold trade with China and India. The Kingdom of Congo, from 1390 to 1914, boasted a population of 3 million and established diplomatic ties with Portugal as early as 1483. The Mali Empire, renowned for its wealth and scholarship, was so rich that Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Cairo in 1324 crashed the gold market, devaluing it for over a decade. These are just a few examples of the sophisticated societies that flourished in Africa long before European colonization. But the narrative of a dark continent conveniently ignored these achievements. In 1884, European powers gathered in Berlin to carve up Africa amongst themselves. The Berlin Conference, held from November 1884 to February 1885, was chaired by Otto von Bismarck and attended by representatives from 14 European nations and the United States. No African leaders were invited. This blatant disregard for African sovereignty resulted in the scramble for Africa, where arbitrary borders were drawn, dividing ethnic groups and laying the foundation for future conflicts. The conference formalized the principles of effective occupation, a thinly veiled excuse for land grabbing and resource extraction. Article 6 of the Berlin Act invoked the supposed benefits of civilization to justify the plunder of African resources. King Leopold II's Congo Free State, a particularly brutal example, resulted in the deaths of an estimated 10 million people through forced robber labor. The atrocities were exposed by Eddy Morel's Congo Reform Association, but the truth was suppressed until 1908. The lie of 1652 in South Africa is another prime example of historical distortion. The official narrative claims that South Africa was founded when Jan van Riebeeck, a commander of the Dutch East India Company, arrived at Table Bay in 1652. However, the Khoisan people had inhabited the region for over 100,000 years, and Bantu migrations had reached the Cape by around 300 AD. Van Riebeeck's arrival marked the beginning of European colonization, not the founding of a nation. The 1652 myth served to legitimize white settler supremacy and the subsequent apartheid regime. The transatlantic slave trade, a horrific chapter in human history, saw an estimated 12.5 million Africans forcibly transported across the Atlantic between 1501 and 1866. Approximately 388,000 of them were brought to what is now the United States. Enslaved Africans were branded as heathens to justify their subjugation. The Hamitic hypothesis, a racist theory developed in the 19th century, falsely claimed that Africans were descended from the cursed biblical figure Ham, further fueling the narrative of racial inferiority. The consequences of these historical lies continue to reverberate in modern Africa. The arbitrary borders created at the Berlin Conference have fueled numerous ethnic conflicts, such as the Rwanda genocide. The economic exploitation initiated during colonialism continues through neocolonial debt and resource extraction. The suppression of African history has had a profound impact on identity and self-perception. In South Africa, the legacy of apartheid and the colored identity category continue to fuel social divisions and xenophobia. But Africans are fighting back. The African Union's Agenda 2063 seeks to reject the artificial borders imposed by the Berlin Conference and promote Pan-African unity. There is a growing movement to reclaim African history and challenge the dominant narratives. The fight to expose the historical lies that have plagued Africa is far from over. It requires a commitment to truth, a willingness to challenge dominant narratives, and a recognition of the enduring impact of colonialism. The truth is this: Africa was not a dark continent. It was a continent of vibrant civilizations, rich cultures, and resilient people. By dismantling the lies and reclaiming the truth, we can begin to build a more just and equitable future for Africa and the world. The legacy of these historical lies is far-reaching. They have shaped global perceptions of Africa, influenced economic policies, and contributed to ongoing social and political challenges. Addressing these issues requires a critical examination of the past and a commitment to dismantling the structures of inequality that have been built upon these false narratives. One crucial step in dismantling these historical lies is to promote comprehensive and accurate education about African history. This includes incorporating African voices and perspectives into curricula, challenging Eurocentric biases, and highlighting the contributions of African civilizations to global knowledge and culture. It also involves supporting research and scholarship that explores the complexities of African history and challenges dominant narratives. Another key aspect of addressing the legacy of historical lies is to promote economic justice and empowerment in Africa. This includes advocating for fair trade practices, debt cancellation, and increased investment in African economies. It also involves supporting initiatives that promote sustainable development, entrepreneurship, and job creation. In addition, it is essential to address the social and political consequences of historical lies. This includes promoting inclusive governance, strengthening democratic institutions, and protecting the rights of marginalized communities. It also involves fostering intercultural dialogue, promoting reconciliation, and building bridges between different ethnic and religious groups. Ultimately, overcoming the legacy of historical lies requires a fundamental shift in attitudes and perceptions. It requires recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of all people, celebrating cultural diversity, and promoting mutual respect and understanding. It also requires challenging prejudice and discrimination, and working towards a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. The journey towards truth and reconciliation is a long and challenging one, but it is essential for building a more just and equitable future for Africa and the world. By dismantling the lies and reclaiming the truth, we can create a world where everyone is valued, respected, and empowered to reach their full potential.